I'm back with the third card from the Beyond the Horizon Paper Pumpkin Kit, March 2022. I'm Jill Blanchette with Green Thumb Stampers. Here is what the kit makes, and here is our third card we're going to do. You should be able to see I've got a product on here that is not Stampin' Up. See it in the background but I'm going to show you how to make it. And you can get that product if you would like it. I got mine online. It's going to use this card. And if you want to use this little thing here, you could use this piece, but I did not want to use this because you might want to use these cards as they're intended. So I cut it out with the, I believe it's the Artfully Layered dies, but any of the ferns or big leaves would work. And I cut it out of the bits that I had left over up in this area. I think it was the flap. I think I got 2 of them out of the flap. So it's mainly white, but you could use the wherever you want to use of the envelope. But this was my alternate idea to using that fern, but the fern was originally how I had it on there, but my next card's going to use it, the 4th card, and I didn't want to use up all the supplies on my alternate. So I cut that with the Artfully Layered dies. So I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to get started with this first step because it takes a little bit to dry. You can hit it with the heat tool, that helps, but I just wanted to show you guys and get this going. So we are going to use some crystal glaze from Sizzix, and it's like a hair gel with glitter in it. I don't know if you could see all that. I don't know how good my lighting is on my phone. So I've got a palette knife, and I've got one of the stencils, Stampin' Up! Stencils, and you could go ahead and glue this down. I'm just going to hold it, and I'm going to leave this card together, but try and find your perimeter of your card and not really go over it too much. We'll cut it down after it dries, but you don't want to kind of get it all over your place where you're working. So I'm going to go ahead and get that part done just to show you, and we'll let it dry. So it's got this little insert in it that pulls out, and like I say, it's kind of like a hair gel, but it's pretty much glue, but it looks like hair gel with glitter in it. So I'm going to set that down, and I'm just going to grab a bunch of it off, and then I'm going to be careful to drag down, but not too fast and furious, because this stencil is very, I'm going to call it delicate, in that it moves. All of these things are so fine area space between them that they move if you go too fast and hard. But this stuff will go, just spread it on. It's kind of like embossing paste. You want to get the cap back on, and you want to get it into some water as soon as you can, so that and I just want a thin layer of it, so I'm trying to scrape it all off. Go ahead and put the rest back in the jar, and ideally you would have like a tub here to put the palette knife in and the stencil. I'm going to take a peek, make sure I got it all over the card, and I'm going to go throw it in the sink. Hang on. So while I was at it, I cleaned my tools, and I hit this with my heat tool. It is still a little bit tacky. I suggest, though, that you try and let it dry naturally, because the stuff does have a slight odor, and I'm afraid, I don't know if it's flammable if you got it too hot, and that would be my only hesitation to doing the the heat tool too much on it. Avoid contact with eyes. Replace cap tightly. Do not ingest. Contains proton. I don't see anything that says that it's flammable, but like I say, it has an odor to it that might mean it's flammable. So we want to cut this down. So your piece that will be in the kit is 4.5 by 3 3/4. So we want to cut this to, I'm going to cut this piece off here first. So then I'm going to trim it to the edges of the pattern. And like I say, I shouldn't probably be doing this now because it's still a little bit tacky. But we want to cut the pieces down to 3.5. And again, I forgot. So we're going to go 3 3/4. So we're going to go 3.5 by 4 1/4. So let's go 4 1/4 right here. Cut that down. Oops, it didn't go all the way through. 4 1/4. Try it again. There we go. And it is, can you see? It is pretty thick on there. That's why I went with a thin layer of it, but you can leave it thicker the more you leave on there, but it'll take longer to dry and such. So we've got this piece, so then we're going to go ahead and glue this onto our evening evergreen mat. And then I had this piece of paper underneath for that paste to get onto. So I'm going to glue this on to our evening evergreen mat carefully because it is a little bit tacky. And moving forward, I'm going to pull in my, because we would be letting this dry, or you know, maybe I did hit it with the heat tool. You could set it aside to dry a little bit longer. So while it's drying, you can proceed with your card base. It's a 8.5 by 5.5 piece. Fold or score or both at the 4 1/4 mark. And then I have the stamps from the kit, and I'm using this fern with old olive ink. I'm going to put it over here under my mat. And I'm just going to go around the perimeter and get in some stamping of these leaves. You can put them any which way you want. You don't need to really get into the center because we're going to cover it up with that piece that we just put the gel on. Whoops. So I'm just turning the paper every which way, and then I'll fill in with some extra pieces of leaves where I see some openings around the edge, just to make it a little bit fuller. And we're going to call that good. Now that I re-inked it up again, I'll just stick that one on there. So then you're going to take, that's it for that layer. Then when this is dry, we're going to pull it back in, and we're going to use some of the ribbon in the kit, and we're going to go around it and tie a bow or a knot, whichever is easier for you. Let's see if we can get the knot to go tight enough. the bow. I'm not doing a knot, I'm doing a bow. Pull it down this way a little bit and get a longer tail on it. I can never tie them when I need to, like on camera. There. Pull the tail less. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. I'm going to try and keep that bent over so that I didn't want that twist in there. Maybe I can turn it to the back. If you ever get the twist in them like that, you should be able to try and hide it if you can twist it over and get it to the back side. So I'm going to cut that off. And then we're going to glue that onto the front. But I'm going to build up the rest of it first. So we need one of the, again, you could use an envelope or just a piece of paper in a different color. You could try just blending on it if you didn't want to use up all your kit pieces. You could get a blending brush or a sponge and just rub around on here a little bit, or whitewash it with some with your water painter or something like that to just jazz it up a little bit. Oh, here, let me get these bigger ones and get this. Maybe I can get done faster if I use these big ones. All right. Now, key here is to straddle the ribbon, kind of get the ribbon in place where you want it, but straddle the ribbon between the glue so that you can move it around if you need to. So when you have the layer positioned between the adhesives, you can pull it over, give it a little bend, and then it will pull without really making a mess of your cardstock. So I pulled it over, and then I'll kind of pull that tight. It's up to you if you want your bow above your sentiment or below. I'm going to trim just a smidge off from this. Then we're going to go ahead and glue this down onto the old olive card front. And I just centered it on there. It's not top to bottom, you know, it's not a perfect layer. The top and the bottom are bigger than the space than the left or right, but that's okay. Stick that down. So I have the fern that I was describing before that you'll want to go ahead and glue down onto the front of this pale papaya piece. And you could use the adhesive sheets. You're not gluing the whole thing down, so using the adhesive sheets, when you peel off the backing, you're going to end up having more sticky area than what you really want. So I just got the green glue. I put a little bit down the spine of it, and then I want to put it up to and under the ribbon. And then I have one of the sentiment white pieces from the kit. You again could just use some basic white if you didn't want to use up your kit pieces. And then I have the I Will Always Be Here For You. Thought this looked kind of serene, kind of a looking card, so I went with this sentiment in old, oh no I didn't, I used Evening Evergreen. And let's see if I'm straight. And then we'll go ahead and glue that down to the front. You could put it, I didn't want to put it under, but you could put it in, you know, different places. And I put the dimensional on the end that will be hanging off because that's where we need the height. So I'm going to glue this down. And then again, the dimensionals down on this end where we need the height because this one is on dimensionals. And looks like I could have used a piece of this because these cheap ones that I got are from the Dollar Tree and they look to be a little bit thinner. So I'm going to stick it on the back there. And now it should be the same height. And there you have it. That's the third card in the Paper Pumpkin for March.